Welcome back. We are continuing again with building the arms of the Strike Freedom Gundam. So, the last time I was able to get the shoulder joints and the bracers that'll go on the outside of the arms, I finished with these red pieces, getting them painted. And here you can see I'm putting them together and actually fitting them into the arm itself. So after I got those out of the way, it was time to start on the skeleton of the arm. So unlike the shoulder joints and the bracers, the arms themselves are left and right specific. So that is why you can see me here not doing them together, but rather doing them separately. Now we're getting to the armor plates for the arm itself. It actually took me a little bit to figure out exactly how the various pieces were supposed to fit together. There are some very small details on the pieces, some very small differences between them that you need to be careful to note the correct orientation for each of the individual pieces. The instructions do, of course, include some references to those to warn you and make sure that you're paying attention, and those were actually why I looked closely and made sure, because this piece that I'm actually painting here right now is not quite symmetrical to front and back, and that is actually an important point, an important detail. If I were to put it on backwards, which could be done, it would not fit with the rest of the pieces for the arm. So one of the things I've found with the paint pens is that I try and maintain a grain, as it were. That is to say, instead of going constantly in a crosshatch pattern with the pen, I try and go back and forth in one particular way. This helps keep the paint smooth and keeps it even. So by the time I was finished painting the second part, the first one had dried sufficiently for me to be able to finish painting the underside of it. But unfortunately, the same could not actually be said of the second piece, and I had to wait a little bit while that dried. So after they were painted and dry, I started figuring out exactly how they were going to fit together and fit on the skeleton. Again, as I said before, you do have to be careful to make sure your orientation is correct. So you might have noticed in some of my videos the what I'm wearing. That actually is due to where I'm building my gunpla. Many homes in China do have heating, although it's not necessarily as efficient as I'm used to back in America. However, the home that I am currently staying in, that I was at holiday in, for a holiday, does not have any sort of centralized heating, and so it's a little bit cold. I'm having to wear a jacket and a sort of cape that my wife had gotten me so that I can stay warm. Unfortunately, the cape does occasionally get in the way as I'm reaching for parts, and I have to hold it out of the way a little bit or put it over my shoulder to be able to avoid knocking things off of my workstation. So I used the hairdryer to finish drying this particular piece more quickly. After making sure it was going on in the correct direction, I started getting it on the part. It proved to be a little bit difficult to get all the way on there, but by no means impossible. And this is where I discovered that I had made a mistake earlier when I was painting. Painting the shoulder joint, I had painted the peg. And the peg and the peg hole on the arm were an extremely tight fit already. And just that little bit of extra that the paint added made it even more difficult to go in. I had to take the armor plate off and work it down in there in order to try and get it on, and then play with it and fiddle with it for a little bit before I was finally able to get it to seat well. But once it did, it snicked into place very, very well, very tightly, and was a very satisfying fit. Now, of course, if you do have parts that have a particularly tight fit, you need to be careful to make sure they go together, but they don't break. So that's it for this video, and we'll work on the arms some more in the next one.